Hello, everyone. The real estate ladies of North Atlanta are here. Suze Jennings and Mary Ellen Vanaken. How you doing today, Sue?
I'm doing great, Mary Ellen. How was your weekend?
Oh, mine was great. So let's dig into today. We're going to talk about relocation guide for North Atlanta, Georgia. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you about the processes in buying a home in Georgia, and we're going to tell you some guidance on what you need to know, because Sue is a big relocation. We all know she relocated here from Pennsylvania, so she's going to tell you all the tricks in the trade and what were her challenges and what inspired her to move to this area. So I think we can just dig in and go into this about relocating to North Atlanta. So just a little bit about us is that we've been in the business for over 21 years, and we live, work, and play in Alpharetta. So we've been in the same market center office for that long. We cover the North Atlanta area. So depending on price point or how close you need to be to work, we're going to help you in that area. So I think that's one of the most important things, right, Sue, is figuring out schools, figuring out how close to locations. So a little bit about, me, and who cares? Let's move on. I'm just kidding. Some client testimonies, we just kind of talk about that, but let's get into the home buying process here. So, Sue, let's start here with the home buying process.
Right. So when we made the decision to move from Philadelphia to Atlanta, I really didn't know much about Atlanta. I had visited Atlanta for the SEC tournaments and stayed in Buckhead a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know where to start, really, other than that my husband's job was going to be in Midtown and we could live anywhere. And one of our key criteria for selecting a home was that we had 2 children that were high school age. So we really needed strong schools. So that was a driving force for our home search. So what we did was we put together a list of 10 criteria that we wanted in our home. Of course, price was one of those. The schools were one of those. And the location relative to my husband's work was important because there's a lot of traffic in Atlanta. Yes. We also needed to find an agent that, could help us. So we initially started by asking at my husband's place of employment for an agent. This was before we even made the move here. And that agent then, gave us a little bit of guidance, but referred us up to Keller Williams, North Atlanta, to an agent there. Unfortunately, I didn't know Mary Ellen at that point, but the agent that did help us was excellent because of the training that Keller Williams gives every one of their agents. So we started out by selecting an agent, which is the first green square on the process here. The next thing we did was we got pre-qualified for a mortgage. Fortunately, we were able to use a mortgage lender that had helped us in Pennsylvania and could also help us here in Georgia because of the company that he was with. He was able to do both.
Which is really interesting. Let me just stop you there. So first thing is, if you're moving from somewhere else and you have a lender that you love and you've worked with and they can do business in Georgia, then that's a great route to go. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we have some great lenders that we do business with. So a lot of people don't know that. So if you had somebody that you just see if they can do business in Georgia, sometimes it's better to have someone that is actually in the state, but I really feel like it's all about feeling comfortable. And you're doing a big move here, so you want to feel comfortable. So
you've got a lot of moving things and a lot of variables when you are moving, and you want to control as many of them as you possibly can. And when you've got children involved, it's, you've got to really put them first and consider, what their needs are and get the move done as quickly and as smoothly as possible. Part of our problem was that we had a new build in outside of the Philadelphia area, and the market had started to drop off since we moved into that home. We were only in that home about 3 years, and so selling that home became a challenge. So while the house was sitting on the market, and we used the same agent to list that home that we had bought the home through. So she knew the home, and we fully trusted her to do all the showings and everything else, and to, watch the home for us and take good care of it. And which was a big task, being that we were 800 miles away from her. But, she did a great job. And so what we did was we got temporary housing here so that we could take our time to look around for a home while we were waiting for our home in Pennsylvania to sell, because we really needed that home to sell first so that we could go ahead and purchase a home here. But we went ahead and we got pre-qualified for a mortgage, and so we could start our search. At the time that we were searching, which was 15 years ago, the market was very different here than it is today. Today, it's a lot faster market. Things move a lot quicker. At that time, the bottom had kind of fallen out of the market for a while. So homes that I was looking at in July were probably still on the market in December. So that kind of worked to my advantage a little bit. But we did put together, and I started to mention this before, a search criteria list, which is the third square on this process. And the search criteria, we had about 10 items on our list. We probably really only needed about maybe 8 items on that list. Some of the things were not as critical. But we needed a home that, we could entertain in. We needed a home that could accommodate a significant amount of furniture. We were coming from a larger home, so we wanted a larger home again. And so, like I mentioned before, the girls were our priority, being in high school. So we also searched the area. We did a lot of our own homework, so to speak, looking for a great school area. We found great schools in the East Cobb area and the North Fulton School area. So we narrowed it to about 6 different schools at that time. A 7th school, which I would now have considered had not been built yet. But we ended up, it's kind of a funny story, but we ended up eliminating the schools in East Cobb because they started too early for us. We were coming out of schools in the Pennsylvania area that had ended at the end of June, and these schools were starting the first week of August, and it was too quick of a turnaround for us from the time the job offer was solidified until we made the decision to make the move. And so we made a quick trip down here in July to pick some temporary housing so that we could get the girls settled. We actually ended up getting here the first day of school. And how we picked the school was we did our research. We looked online at everything we could possibly look at. We did visit the schools that weekend in July when we were here. It was a whirlwind weekend where we looked at 3 different schools, actually. And schools here do look different in July when they're not occupied. So it's a little hard to tell. Right.
Like a ghost town, right?
Yeah. So we ended up picking a school that was top tier school and still is today, and was also within a reasonable distance of Georgia 400 from my husband's commute into Midtown. So from there, we then did move into our temporary housing, and how we worked that was, it was an unfinished townhouse that we were able to furnish through Brook Furniture Rental or Court Furniture Rentals, the alternate that we had. And what's great about that is you can just go online and look at the rooms that they have to offer. So if you need a 2-bedroom furnished apartment, they have a good, better, best scenario where you can select what type of furnishings fit your budget. And you can put it on a credit card monthly, and take it from there. And then when we were ready to move, we just called them up and said, we're moving on such and such date. They arrived at the front door that day and picked up all the furniture, and out the door we went.
There
It
you
was
go.
really a very, very simple process to go through, while we were able to leave all of our, the majority of our belongings in Pennsylvania until that house sold. So that was a smooth process.
Everyone, Sue, everyone has a different process. So some people are like, I don't want to live in temporary housing. I don't want to rent for a year. I want to go straight from one house to another. So having a great agent in both areas is really key.
I would have preferred not to do the temporary housing, but I had a house I absolutely needed to sell first.
Right.
And so, it really came down to a financial decision to be able to get into the type of home we wanted. I needed the equity out of the other home.
Yes.
So, and that's okay. But I want people to also know, don't fear that temporary housing process. We initially were able to sign a lease for just 3 months and do month to month after that, and it all worked out. People, get kind of nervous about that part of the process if they have to do that. And, if the real estate market in the area we were coming from had been different, our situation here would have been very different too.
Yes.
But what we started to do after we put our criteria together of what we were looking for, we did start searching for homes. What I would do during the week is go out and look at homes when my husband was at work, maybe narrow it to 1 or 2 homes, and then go back to those top homes on the weekend, usually just 1 or 2, like I said. We did put some offers in while we were going through this process. We actually didn't get the first 2 offers. So, and it wasn't because we got outbid or anything like that. It's just that because of different situations, the one home was bank owned because there were a lot more foreclosures around here at that time. The bank was set on a certain price that really wasn't realistic when you looked at the comps and everything else. So that one home didn't work out, and the other home didn't work out because the seller was being unrealistic, and the seller gave us a really crazy counter offer. And as a result, that particular home that we didn't purchase actually ended up waiting another year on the market and sold a year later for $100,000 less than what we had offered that particular seller. So, sellers need to, be a little bit flexible too, especially when there's a difficult real estate market. But, we were able to negotiate and agree on terms on our new home. And we did actually close on that about 3 weeks before we closed on our home that we were selling up in Pennsylvania. And we did move here a couple days after we closed on the new home.
Yes. Yes. So just going through the process, what were some of the challenges that you faced coming from another area to this area? Anything that you had to adjust to?
I think the biggest adjustment was just learning my way around, learning different neighborhoods, not knowing anybody here. We didn't have doctors. We didn't have a veterinarian. And I relied on my realtor, and she did a wonderful job of giving me great information as far as preferred veterinarians in the area, a pediatrician for the children, processes as to how to get your children's immunization forms from another state transferred over to Georgia state forms so that they could get into school. She was a great resource just to bounce questions off of and to talk to, because when we moved here, other than my immediate family and our dog and our cat, I knew no one.
Right.
And, that was something very, very new for me and very challenging for me. It was also challenging for the children. They, of course, made friends very quickly because we got them involved in sports very, very quickly at their schools. And sports are a great way to get your kids moving, get them to know other children. It's also a great way for you as a parent to get to know other parents in the schools. And I also volunteered at the school. And that was a great way for me to get to know the teachers, the faculty, and other parents at the school as well. So I was able to make friends quickly. And then we also joined a local fitness center and a tennis club and things like that so that we could meet people. And of course, my husband was meeting people through work. And then, on weekends, I always made an effort to put together some family fun activities of going to local places in the Atlanta area so that we could learn the area and experience different museums, different parks, different restaurants, and different activities that were available throughout the year.
That sounds like so amazing. Like, I think that people do get nervous, and it's a big move, moving from anywhere, moving from Pennsylvania, California, Texas, where New York, wherever you're moving from, and you have children involved too. That's just another added, and your husband or wife, whoever, the spouse has a new job, so they're dealing with new things. They're not might be working a lot more than normal, and you're having to facilitate everything. So remember, having good connections, which we have, can help you in every aspect of, if you need someone to help you unload and organize, if you need an interior designer, if you need to have your floors done, if whatever painting, whatever you need, we're here to guide. And so I think the relocation of moving here is just really learning the area. And we have many videos that talk about the area and really honing in on the area you want to be in. We cannot, and I think sometimes it's hard. And with a lot of our real estate clients who are out of town, we will do video tours for them. We'll walk around and we can do it on Zoom, WhatsApp, or whatever, however you want it, we can get it to you. And basically we walk through the house as we're on the phone with you, and we show you every nook and cranny of a house. We videotape the neighborhood. We videotape so that you can get kind of a feel of where it is. And nowadays with Google Earth, with so many things that you actually can see, it's amazing how you can, if you don't have time to be here physically, just having someone, a great agent to help you, guide you in that direction. So I feel like that's kind of where we're at. All right. So going through the process is you select a home, you make an offer, then you go through, okay, so we have due diligence here in Georgia. I don't know, a lot of states don't have due diligence. So in the state of Georgia, you can actually, usually it's about 5 to 10 days. And basically that's when you do your inspections of your home, your appraisal, all that kind of stuff. And if you're not happy with the home for any reason, you can get your earnest money back, which a lot of states you can't. So you do have a due diligence period in Georgia. Something that's different too is that we're an attorney state. So basically it's not a title company when you go to a closing, it's an attorney, and the attorney represents the lender. And if it's a cash deal, then they represent, just the buyer there in that situation. So there's a lot of different things. Different states have different rules and regulations. So even though you've sold 10 houses in Pennsylvania or New York or California, when you come here, it's a totally different process. So we have to go through the process with you so you understand. And another thing I bet Sue didn't know, when you came here, what are termites, right? So every house has to, I 100% agree, has to have a termite bond, right? So just things like that. And it's amazing how we have friends across the world and how they do real estate. Every state is different, even if it's only an hour or two away. South Carolina is totally different than Georgia. Georgia's totally different than Florida. So really that's one thing that I think that you have to be mindful of, is that we do business a little differently here. Right.
And I really can't stress how much trust I put into my realtor to answer my questions and give me a lot of guidance on great vendors, because through the due diligence process, there were repairs that were needed on the home that we purchased. And she assisted with selecting those particular vendors, made recommendations. She also assisted me with finding a great painter who was able to come in before we closed and give me an estimate on what it would cost to, paint certain rooms as soon as we closed. We also had her give us a recommendation for a carpet person because we wanted to change all the carpet on the second floor. So I can't stress enough how important it is to have a great relationship with an awesome agent that can really give you a lot of guidance on all of that. I did not know what a termite bond was, for instance, and she explained the whole process to me very, very clearly. And it just made things, so much easier to have a great agent to work with.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that if you're here in the wintertime, most of the grass is dormant and it's brown. And a lot of people don't understand that. I know people relocation clients came in and they're like, well, why is the grass dead? And I'm like, well, it's the wintertime. It's green and exactly. It's Bermuda, Soisha. It gets green in April, and then it goes dormant kind of in November. And so just like little tips of the trade, like you said, you didn't know what a termite bond is. So that's why you really have to have faith in somebody here to guide you. So let's go to taking the stress out of home buying, which I think it's so stressful to move, right?
It is.
It really is. And
exhausting too.
It is exhausting. But I love these it's like the 10 rules here is, of course, find a real estate agent that you connect with. Remember, there's no right time to buy. There's just no perfect time and no perfect time to sell. So don't think that something's going to go lower. If you like it and it ticks all your criteria, then you should do it. And I think having that in-depth conversation of what you want and what you need, and really honing into where, because we don't want to show you, nobody wants to show 100 houses, right? Or 20 houses. We want to show you 5 houses. And out of those 5 houses, you're going to find the one that you like. Right. So I think and when the inventory is low, that does happen. You might be searching but there is no perfect house. Remember that.
No, there's really not. And I can't stress enough putting together that criteria list of what it is that you want or need. And then keep in mind to be a little flexible with that list as well, because you might have 10 items on that list and hopefully you'll get 9 out of the 10, but sometimes you won't. I think one of the things when you're relocating with children is to really focus in on the school area that you want. And then, be committed to finding a home in that area, even if it's not perfect to your criteria. And there is no perfect home either. But
even if you build a home, Sue, even if you build a home, it's not perfect. Because after you live in a house, you're like, oh, if I should have moved that over there, or I should have done that. So I think that's kind of really important too, is going into your wants and needs, right?
Right.
And no house is perfect. We know that, plan ahead.
But I think it makes it easier, Mary Ellen, if you try to focus and not bounce around, like really select an area where you want to live and stick to that area and get to know that area and, search within a specific area, because Atlanta's a big market. If you come here as a relo and you start searching in the northwestern part of the suburbs, and then you're searching in the northeastern part of the suburbs, that's a big distance. From 75 to 85 is a long distance between those two areas. And so being focused on, I'd like to live in Alpharetta or Milton, or I'd like to live in Roswell, or I'd like to live in Canton. That's much more of a manageable search for everybody. Rather than saying, well, maybe I want Marietta today, and maybe I want Sewanee tomorrow, and maybe, we'll look at Kennesaw the next day, and then we'll look in Johns Creek. Those are wide swings of areas. I really think that the most successful searches are when people really focus in on a particular area and stick to that.
Yes, I agree. So taking stress, I mean, we all know there's a lot of stress. Oh, and one more thing. We don't have basements here in Georgia. They're called terrace levels. Okay. So that's another thing that people are like, what? So a basement, there's no windows, right? Or very limited
Right.
windows. We're here because of the terrain that we have. Everything's hilly. So finding a flat backyard normally without doing work on it is challenging here. So you're not going to have the perfect backyard, and that's why there's so many terrace levels, which is nice because it's 3 levels of home. So
Mhm.
people like that too.
Right, right.
So I just
The
wanted
one
to
thing
put that
I
in.
like on that list, Mary Ellen, if you go back a minute to taking the stress out of home buying, I like number 5.
Okay.
Don't try to be a killer negotiator.
Okay.
You know, Mary Ellen and even myself, we do this every day for a living. We know how to negotiate for your house and get you the best deal possible. But, I want to stress to sellers as well as buyers that it's important to remain flexible and be realistic, and don't kill the negotiations to the point where you lose house after house after house. It's really important to be grounded and understand that, like we said before, nothing is going to be perfect.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mortgage and loan process, I mean, of course,
Mhm.
we don't show anybody a house unless they pre-qualify. So
Right.
you want to get pre-qualified with a lender you trust. We always have recommendations. Find someone you click
Right.
with. You want to get the loan approval, pre-qualification, just the process. I mean, I think a lot of people that are relocating here have gone through a process of buying a house before.
Mhm.
So it's pretty much the same process. It's not going to change here. It's, you're going to pre-qualify. You're going to, once you get all your information to the lender, it's going to go into underwriting and they're going to approve it. And then it goes to an attorney, the closing day, you go to an attorney and all that stuff. And the attorney is the one who gets title, because like people are like, well, you have an attorney. What about title companies?
Mhm.
Well, the attorneys actually have title companies. So they'll get you your title insurance for your property, and then you have your funding of a property. So just this is more for the process here, in case you have not had a lot of experience.
Right.
And, this just kind of digs into pre-qualification and pre-approval. I will tell you, we have a lot of lenders that we work with that will take you all the way to underwriting without a property. And then it's like ready to go. And I
Right.
strongly suggest that, because we have been in a competitive market for the past, 5 years. So, and who knows, the real estate market is always changing, but having that ready to go, this is like cash, let's go, is really important if you're doing lending.
Right. Because when we have somebody that's pre-qualified and the loan's in underwriting basically before the house is even locked in, we can then go ahead and close those homes in 2 to 3 weeks without a problem at
And
all.
that's another
Because
thing here in Georgia.
Mhm.
Well, let me get back to closings here are 30 days or less. If you do over 30 days, people think something's wrong, right? So, so I know in New York, I know in other places, it's 60, 90 days for a closing. Here, it's very short. You can actually close a property in 10 days.
Right.
So I think that that's an advantage, even though people think that Georgia's just, it's in the South. They're slow. We actually do things really fast compared to other parts of the country. So I think that that's another tidbit that we need to know. And then just digging into the 10 commandments when applying for a mortgage.
I love this slide, by the way.
This is a great slide.
Yeah.
You can't change jobs. You can't quit your job. You can't buy a car, truck, or van, or boat, or whatever else you want to buy.
Yeah, don't go out and buy all new furniture and put it on your credit card.
Oh, do not do that. Come on. Don't charge credit cards excessively. Don't spend money you have aside for closing, the furniture. don't make large deposits without checking with your loan officer. Don't be taking the money from your mattress and putting it into the bank.
And
don't change your bank
forget
accounts.
to make your credit card payments during this time either.
Right.
We don't need a missed credit card payment because that'll also damage your credit score.
Right. All right. So lender, what you need for a mortgage and 10 questions to ask a lender. So this is just basically information. If you are interviewing a lender, what you want to do. And this is what a lender usually asks for. So I think educating yourself, if you haven't bought a house in a while, this is what I tell everyone. I say, listen, your lender might ask you for the same thing 10 times. Just give it to them. You know what I mean? Don't say, well, I already gave that to them. Just give it to them. There's a lot of people touching the file, and I don't know. It's like paper just kind of gets disappeared or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my tidbit.
And when they give you the lender checklist up front of what they need, make sure you get all those things together and try to give it to the lender in one batch. I know there'll be straggler things at the end that you need to provide to them, but usually not giving them things piecemeal right out of the gate is the best way to do it. Get those documents together and then give them one batch of documents initially. That usually works the best. And also make note that mortgage companies and mortgage lenders have multiple products that might fit your needs. So talk to your mortgage lender about what your needs are, and they can recommend a particular type of product for your mortgage that might work best for you.
Okay, and then here's some information on credit scores. Like, how can you improve your credit score? The better your credit score, the better interest rates you're going to get. There's so many programs out there. That's why, and lenders will give you different rates, so you have to shop around and make sure there's no hidden fees involved. That's all I can say on that credit scores. Okay, so common closing costs is, pretty easy. Your down payment, and then all your fees for the lender, and what happens is the lender's going to give you all those fees. So you're going to know what they are up front, your appraisal, credit report. If you don't put 20% down, you're going to have private mortgage PMI, your insurance, and your homeowner's insurance and taxes will go into an escrow account. Sue, explain what an escrow account is to our
Well, an escrow account is an account that's held by the mortgage lender, whether it's a bank or a private mortgage company. And what they'll do is every month out of your mortgage payment, you pay your principal, your interest, and then you will pay a portion of what they anticipate your taxes and your homeowner's insurance will be. They hold that into an account that's in your name, and they then accumulate funds in that account so that they are able to pay your school taxes when they come due, your real estate taxes when they come due, and your homeowner's insurance when it is due to be paid. So what's really nice about this is that you don't have to come up with a large sum of money at different times of the year to make these payments because the mortgage company is doing that for you.
Great. So these are just like, we have a transfer tax in Georgia. Everyone has their own little, stamp tax and this kind of tax and this, for closing costs. So you just kind of have to reach out to your real estate professional. Then they can get you, what the cost will be involved besides your lender.
One of the most common questions that I get from my buyers is, what's an intangible tax? Right. An intangible tax is the tax on the amount that you are mortgaging. And your mortgage lender can explain that to you in greater detail as to what that means, but you will see that as a line item on your closing disclosure.
Great. So we talked about the home search. We dug into this about, house and location, bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchen, basement, / basement, structures, exterior, general. So these are, helping you with the home search, the search process. Okay, we encourage, if you are here, Sue, did you go to a bunch of open houses while you were here because you were like, I'm not sure if I really like this house, but you know what? I'm going to go on the weekends. So I think I would encourage people to do that. Just when you do go to an open house, you just let the agent know that you are working with an agent. This is the agent's name. So I have some clients that they love to go to open houses. And it's so funny because I just tell them, they go, well, we went to an open house this weekend. And I was like, well, what did you see? And they're like, well, we didn't like it. So I'm like, okay. So they just really like to go to open houses because they said, I don't want to waste your time or whatever, but we're here to help you. But it is great to go to open houses, even if you don't like the property, but you might like the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So it's really kind of giving you some guidance.
Right. What I really encourage relocating clients to do is to drive neighborhoods.
Yes.
And to figure out what types of neighborhoods you like, look at the amenities in each of those neighborhoods, and, scout out the neighborhoods, especially in the school areas that you're interested in, because you might see something on, realtor.com or something, or Zillow, that you think looks great, and you drive into the neighborhood and there's an industrial park in the backyard, or there's a gas station next door.
You have to live there, and you have to live there. So remember, you have to live there. We don't have to live there. Neighborhood. Another thing I tell people is go drive it on the weekends, because then you see the kids out playing, or what kind of mix of a neighborhood it is. Also, when the school bus comes, that's another guidance that I always tell people, because people like, are there kids in the neighborhood? I'm sure there is. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know every single neighborhood, and we don't know we're not allowed to tell you the demographics or how many kids are in the neighborhood. So that's
the crime rate.
Or the
that's
crime.
Something that you need to do your own homework on, as I call it.
Okay. So putting together the offer is, we kind of touched a bunch about this. You got the price, you got the earnest money, your inspections, due diligence, and really the closing. And usually here in Georgia, we do the buyer, seller, everyone's at the closing table together, which I think a lot of people feel that is really odd, because in a lot of states, the buyer goes in and signs, the seller goes in and signs. So it's like one big happy family, I guess, because we live in the South. Everyone's at the closing table. So that kind of is really interesting to a lot of people. So that's another thing that might be interesting to you. So,
but you can get a lot of information at the closing table from the home sellers, because they can tell you about the neighborhood. They can tell you about the HOA. They can tell you, about different committees or different clubs or different groups in the area. And, especially things about the house, as far as, well, the shutoff for this or that is located here, or, this particular key works, this particular storage closet or something like that. So you can get a lot of great information from the sellers, because it might be the first time that you're meeting them, actually.
Yes. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And then, we talked about making an offer. The way you make an offer is obviously looking at all the comparable market analysis with your agent, and coming up with an offer price. And move-in date is flexible. It always is flexible. I would say here, you just really want to do it at the closing. Like, the day of the closing is the move-in date. You don't want to do before or after. There are certain circumstances, but it also can be liability as well. So we really encourage day of closing. It is very normal here in Georgia to do day of closing, that when everybody moves. So we talked about home inspections and other contingencies. Another big thing that people really don't know about is HOAs. There's tons of them here. They have restrictions, they have rules and regulations, and a lot of people don't like that. So
Right.
touch on our HOAs here, Sue. And was that an adjustment to you as well when you moved from Pennsylvania?
Well, actually, I had moved from a newer community in Pennsylvania that did have amenities. And so we did have an HOA. So I was a
Okay.
little bit used to that already. But here in Georgia, we do have a lot of communities that do have nice amenities, such as tennis courts, swimming pools.
Pickleball.
Yeah, playgrounds for the kids and so forth. And so therefore, we do have a lot of communities with HOAs here. It's not anything to be afraid of. These HOAs do a lot of great things for us as far as manage, the swimming pool area and make sure that the maintenance is done and the insurance is paid on those common areas and that the common areas are mowed and landscaped and that sort of thing. So our HOAs do a lot for us. One of the things that I didn't know about when I moved here that's on this screen that you're looking at right now is radon.
Yes, I was just going to
Radon was something I was really not that aware of. And what radon is it's an odorless gas that comes up through the ground and, can be a cancer causing gas that you're not even aware of as far as being in a home. So with home inspections, we do recommend that you do have a radon inspection done. That test takes about 3 days to do it. And there is a maximum that the EPA recommends as far as a reading, that's 4.0, but just so you know, when you're testing radon, it can go up and down throughout the day. It can be dependent upon what the weather's like outside, as well as far as how those radon levels fluctuate. And also, if the radon levels on average do come out above 4.0, it can be remediated. And that is not anything to be afraid of. And you can even have it retested, a year or so later after you're in the home to make sure that your remediation system is working properly.
Perfect. And, like the inspector's going to go over all these items, appliances, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, and heating. I would never waive an inspection, even with new construction. So
Right.
That is my suggestion. You always should have an inspection done. Okay. So let's talk about lowering your home insurance costs.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. So these are all things that you want to talk to your insurance company about. Oftentimes, you do get a discount if you bundle your home and auto together. You might want to get quotes from different insurance companies and try to compare apples to apples so you can see really which one is the most reasonable for you. It is dependent upon your credit score as well as to, and your history with claims as to how good of a rate you will get with your insurance company. But you can raise your deductible and things like that if you want to lower your out-of-pocket costs. Yeah. So, and then make sure you ask about other discounts that might be available to you, especially if you're purchasing a new home.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go to title insurance and home warranties. Okay, title insurance.
Well, there's two types of title insurance here in, not just in Georgia, but in general. The one type of title insurance covers the mortgage holder, and the other type of title insurance covers the actual homeowner. You do need to get both, especially if you do have a mortgage. It is required. The other item on this screen is a home warranty. Now that's an optional item. You can get a home warranty. Maybe you want to just try it for the first year after you've purchased the home because it will cover any major things that need to be done to the home. Say if the appliances need a repair or the HVAC system has a problem. Those are things that a home warranty would cover.
Yes. Perfect. And home warranties, that's a personal thing. People like them, they don't like them, but Murphy's Law, something's going to happen in the first 2 months when you buy a house. I can tell you. So closing, we we have a closing statement here in Georgia, which just shows all the debits and credits to each side, the seller and the buyer. And it also shows what's in escrow account. And when you go to closing, just like anywhere, any state, when you have a lender, there's a lot of paperwork you have to sign. And our attorneys are amazing because they go through all the paperwork. They go like the foreclosure process in Georgia. They go through all the process so that you understand if you're moving from another state, it's different here. So we just need to know that.
Yeah, and when you do go to closing, it is important that the funds needed to close be wired to the closing attorney's office. And to protect yourself against wire fraud, when you get those instructions from the closing attorney, you might want to pick up the phone, call the closing attorney's office, and just confirm that the instructions that you received via email or whatever are correct, and that they didn't come from some other third party that shouldn't have been sending you anything at all. It's just to cover yourself and protect yourself. Now, if there is a little bit of money still owed at the closing table, or the closing attorney owes you a little bit of money at the closing table, that can be done via check. The most that you as a purchaser can write on a check for closing for any extra little incidentals that might have come up is a maximum of $5,000. Anything over that amount needs to be wired in. But on the flip side, the attorney, if you make an overpayment, he can or she can give you a check at closing for the difference.
Yes. So, so basically the attorney will tell you what you need to bring to the closing table. Make sure your money is wired a day. Remember, do not do an ACH. Do not do that. It must be wired. So a lot of people know that, but.
Right. And the only way you can do a wire transfer legitimately is to go into your bank, go into the branch, and get a bank representative at your branch to actually send the wire. If you are initiating it from your laptop at home, that's an ACH. ACHs cannot be accepted for closing because ACHs can be reversed, whereas a wire transfer that's sent directly from your bank cannot be reversed. So that's the reason for that.
Yes, of course. And I think we went through the whole process here. I think we really gave a good idea of the process here in Georgia. And no matter where you're looking, whether it's Roswell, whether it's Alpharetta, whether it's Sandy Springs, Buckhead, Swanee, there's going to be a different vibe in each little city. So you also want to know, we're here to tell you what are our favorite restaurants there, what are our favorite greenways, parks to go to, dog parks, tennis courts. We're going to tell you all that information. So you need to reach out to a professional that can help you. Nowadays, there's so much research online. I mean, you can Google anywhere. We're going to Ireland. Okay, well, what's the best pub to go to or whatever? We're going to California. What's the best winery to go to? So there's so much information you can do on your own, but also looking at reviews online of different services, but also reaching out to people love and trust like us that can help you in that guidance too there.
Right.
So anything else to add, Sue, about your process of moving here, or what you can tell people for some advice, some ending advice? How about that?
Don't forget your photo ID when you go to closing.
There you go. That's a good one. And make sure you do the research and do what's right for your family.
Right.
And don't listen to everybody else. Really listen to yourself, because we have a lot of clients that are older and their kids move here for relocation. And if you are over 62, you get in certain counties in Georgia, you get a discount on taxes. So we get a lot of people over 62 coming to the area. But they're kids are telling them, don't be in this area, be in this area. Don't do that, So really look at what your wants and needs are and have that conversation and ask a lot of questions. So that's what we do, is when we do a consultation, we're going to ask you a lot of questions.
Right.
And it might take a while to hone into exactly what you want, but you can never start too early, because I think it's important to, I have a lot of clients who are all over the place. And I'm fine, I'll send you properties here, here, and here. But then in a week, we got to get down to where we need to be. So
Right. So pardon the cliche, but you need to do your homework.
you need to do your homework as well as we need to do ours. All right. Well, thanks for joining into the Real Estate Ladies of North Atlanta. We talked about the ultimate relocation guide for North Atlanta. And if you want any recommendations on anything in North Atlanta, we're the girls to go to. So thanks, Sue. And you guys all have a great day.